Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Founders Grid, sponsored by Gaper.io. Today we have Jonathan. Jonathan is the founder of TF Labs. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Jonathan, tell us about yourself, what you've been up to.
Yeah, definitely. My name is Jonathan G. Blanco. I'm the founder of TF Labs. We're a startup studio as well as a consulting company where we work with startups to enterprise with anything from application development, branding, content creation. And the startup studio side is we create some of our own products. Our first product that we'll be launching out of the studio is called Hire Streams, which is a video interview platform for job seekers that they can have essentially a video resume of themselves to be able to stand out more. Because right now, basically your alternative is just to send a paper resume that's now has been digitized and pray that someone gets back to you. We're creating these videos that people can, showcase their skill sets and so forth.
Oh, nice. So TF Labs, how's the journey been so far and what you've been doing prior to that, if you can build up on the convo.
Yeah. So I've been an entrepreneur for the majority of my life in different iterations. I started out in the banking sector in the mortgage industry, and was essentially an independent person on that. And then got into the vitamin and supplement industry where with some partners had some physical retail stores. And that's where I really started to get interested in technology overall. I got tired, to be honest, of managing inventory and managing physical hard goods with spoilage. There's people that do that really well, but that was just something I wasn't interested in doing. And so I got very interested in the software side, from everything from the e-commerce, and then how do you actually build out the entire marketplace aspects of things, or just the infrastructure behind it. And so that's really what led me down the path of working on technology products. Attempted and did a few false starts on some startup ideas in the early days. And what was funny is I found myself like going back to my roots of inventory and doing things like that, to then where I started to work on actually e-commerce technology. So everything from payments to advertising, ad tech, and payments within network to loyalty and retention. And that's really where I spent the majority of my time over the last, call it 10 years or so. And spent a little bit of time working at a big box retailer, doing some innovation things for them before I went out again and did some founder things, working on loyalty and retention in the blockchain space. And that's actually what led me into TF Labs. I joke that I started a conference company by accident. I had no intentions of starting a conference business or a media company. And so I just had started attending lots of conferences and events, in person. And most of the events that I went to just didn't speak to me what I was looking for. I really like engagement, and I don't really want to necessarily be just talked to. I want to, what I enjoy the most out of a conference is engaging with other participants or the speakers themselves. And so that was really the notion behind our TF blockchain conferences that we've done. We've launched 4 of those. We unfortunately had to cancel 2 of them due to COVID that we were going to have this past year, but we very much intend to do that again once we can be in person. And we are going to start doing some more digital events in that regard. But what TF Labs came out of is we're doing all this media, and it's really about just seeing opportunity. So I guess the theme of my entrepreneurial background has been, if I see an opportunity, I go for it. I try to figure it out and see, like, okay, here's an opportunity or here's a problem. How do I solve it? How do I make it better? And so that's what we did with, like with the conferences, for example. How do we make it better? To now on the consulting side with TF Labs, like how do we help other people and other companies like think through things the right way? I have a philosophy that your life decisions are less about the knowledge that you have in a said domain and more about your ability to think and reason. So I would rather not be very deep in subjects, but just have an ability to think through and rationalize. So that way, if I learn a new subject, I can pick it up quicker per se, but maybe not necessarily be an expert on it. And other people might not like that, right? They want to be more just super, you know, uh, super just professional in like one topic. That's just not me. I've always been kind of a generalist. And so I think to be a good generalist, you really just need to know how to think more than anything. Like, how do you break down a problem and formulate it? So just real quick to wrap up on the TF Labs. So we've been doing that for about close to 3 years.
Mhm.
And yeah, we started working on a couple internal projects about a year ago. None of them were good enough to say launch with. We think they're still interesting, and they're I guess sort of on the shelf. But the first one that we thought would be really interesting launch with is this higher streams, which is that
Yeah.
first one. And so yeah, so that's where we're at right now.
So hide streams, tell us more about it.
Yeah. So because I produce a lot of content, and because I do podcasts and I interview folks, you know, I think I have a unique lens in how to think through how content can be distributed and consumed by users in different areas. I also have a fundamental belief that the actions that we take in our social lives eventually migrate their ways into the business world. And so when the lockdown happened and all these people were, you started seeing a lot of people posting things on social media like, hey, I just got laid off, help me out, or if you know someone, or I'm willing to help. And so it just really had me thinking is like, man, I wish I could do a podcast and then I could just share all these people's stories. But then I really started thinking about it as like the majority of people that are going to listen to those stories, though they might have empathy for them, they're not going to necessarily, it's not going to be something that they're necessarily going to want to listen to day in and day out. But the people that are going to want to listen to these people are like employers, because like, hey, how do we find more? And so that's really where the impetus came, is how do you give the power to the job seeker so they have more arrows in the quiver to stand out to whoever they're talking to. And so the basic principle is you as a job seeker are able to create a profile of yourself. And in that profile, you answer questions via video. And so when you submit your resume, you're not, or sorry, or an application, you're not just submitting this piece of paper or this digital imprint of yourself. You're also submitting this video. So, if I'm trying to get a job at your company, you can watch these videos of me, see if how I answer the questions, see if I might be a good fit, and so forth. And so we've been doing that for the last about 5 months now. The product just officially launched. It's in its MVP state, and so we're just iterating and making some improvements on that as we continue. But our goal is really to just change the way people think about hiring, and really eliminate a lot of the friction that happens at the beginning phase of the hiring funnel, which is the screening process. So if we can eliminate that screening process, or at least condense it and make it a lot easier, we believe we can make people a lot more efficient in their hiring process.
Hmm. Interesting. So building a company out of pandemic, what's it like?
Yeah, it's interesting. For me, I've just always thought about it in the sense that uh, your opponent. So my family comes from Venezuela. I was born here, but all my family was in Venezuela. And so in Venezuela, when you start a company, not only do you have all the things that happen in business, competition, employees, and gaining market share, you have like this external factor, which is this destroyed economy, as well as you have government intervention that can damage your business. And so that's actually one of the reasons why I think immigrants or children of immigrants do really well in the United States when it comes to starting businesses, is because there's less roadblocks than there is normally. When you to start a business in the United States is difficult. Starting a business is difficult wherever you do it. It's less difficult here than it is in most situations. So the reason I bring that all up is because for me, with what I'm trying to do, is because I'm always thinking of like, how do I make a situation better? COVID is the reason why we started Hire Streams. If there wasn't COVID, we likely would not have started Hire Streams. So for us, it's like, it's good. It's a good thing in the Hire Streams context, right? Obviously, we prefer that people don't get sick, and we prefer that, the economy does well and all those sort of things. We want that. But for us, is like, we're trying to make the most of this situation and then support employers and job seekers in that process. Now, as far as like operating the business and working with other folks, that's been pretty interesting at first, but for the most part, I think it's been really good. In the sense that the colleagues and the team members, it's very much hey, like, let's agree that we're going to achieve XYZ goal, and let's do that this week. But we don't necessarily need to be like right next to each other doing it the entire time. Sometimes we will do that though, where we might be on Zoom and just kind of have it's more like keeping each other company, to be honest. It's like, hey, I'm doing design and product work and someone else is doing software, and we just have the Zoom going, and it's not to keep tabs on each other. It's just like, we can just talk just like you would if you're in a work environment, right? You're going to work on your things, and you might say like, hey, I have a question on this. But I think really the main thing is that you might have heard the saying dinosaurs die, right? And the reasons why dinosaurs die is because they don't evolve. And so the thing behind that saying is just essentially that you have to evolve over time with the business. So like, whatever happens, if you want to survive, you do. I just had a conversation with someone who's a family member, and they're complaining to me about Amazon and like how Amazon's just really bad for small businesses and retailers and this and that. And like, Amazon has destroyed them. And I have a different point of view. I'm like, sure, like, there's definitely, lobbying and all that kind of stuff that Amazon's been able to take advantage of and so forth. But like, big box retailers, small businesses have died more also because they don't necessarily have the resources or the ability to compete at scale. And because there was never that intent of that, right? So, this person in particular, for example, doesn't have a website and has fought having a website for a very long time. And because he feels that like, it's part of him doing that is also, I guess, giving up, going to like this model that doesn't work. But like, so what I had to tell him was like, look, like, that the fact that you don't have a website is not Amazon's fault. And that's just what the market demands. The market demands that you have a website. The market demands that consuming or purchasing goods is faster, quicker, easier. So you have to, if you want to survive as a business in this time, then you need to evolve, in that way. I think there will always be a place for, small business, of course, too. But and look, it's sad that I'm not trying to sound, hopefully I'm not coming across as like very like super capitalistic. It's not that. It's just that
I get it.
um, you can't be upset at the system if you're not willing to evolve, to have that take place.
It's all about finding opportunities in perplexity, I would say. It's more.
Yeah. Right. And look, there's definitely like super predatory practices that have happened in the past where like Walmart would go into a small town and then, like, I'm obviously not in favor of those sort of things. Right. But like, in like the big aggregate, there's, if you are a business that sells retail goods,
Yeah.
and you sell, that's one of the problems, right? So he has goods that are sold everywhere. They're products that you can buy anywhere. So if he sells them online, um, there's tons of competition online. So that's where like the importance of creating like your own product matters, right? Like that's why brands private label. It's not just because it's generic, is that then you now have like this own brand, and then people go to you for that brand. Because if you're selling a commodity online, now it just becomes a lowest price thing. That's all it is, right? At the end of the day, as long as you're going to get it shipped to you within the period of time that you care about, it's just a price war from that point on, right? Or price or convenience. So yeah, it's like, how do you fit into that? I don't know how we got to that side of the
Yeah.
story, but
Last question, since all of ours are within 12 minutes. So, uh, three pieces of advice that you would like to give to entrepreneurs, especially the first time founders or young entrepreneurs who are actually starting out in COVID. So we
yeah.
all get the generic advices, but because of COVID, the advices have also evolved because investors are not writing checks as fast as they used to. So what three pieces of advice would you give to the startup founders?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think one of the so okay, let me think about that. So first piece of advice would be don't try to get it all at once. And so what I mean by that is, if you're a first-time founder, your first-time founder doesn't have to be the next Facebook. It doesn't have to be a really big, massive company. I think most people should practice being a founder with something really easy, like literally, I don't know, selling a physical product. The thing I just talked about, like that I don't like doing, selling a physical product, or having even like a coffee shop. Anything that you can do to learn what it means to operate a business is really, I think, that makes a big difference. Because if you start building a massive software company, not that you can't do it and people can't figure it out, is people forget that you ultimately have to run a business. So if
Yeah.
you've never run a business before, that means you need to get someone in there that has run a business. So that's one. The second one is learn how to think. More than anything, learn how to think. Learn what, and if you don't know what that means, figure out what that means for you. So learning how to think, in my opinion, means that you can take information, you can break it down, and when someone asks you a question, you're not necessarily even answering the question right back. Like, you're getting more information so you can formulate a solid response. Overall, you can think in the mind of the user, you can think in the mind of and have empathy for other people. So that, I think, that becomes really important, is learning how to think. And then three is figure out the advice you want to listen to and the advice you don't want to listen to. I think the biggest mistake most founders do is that they listen to everybody and then they slowly start shifting. And
Yeah.
so really what you need to do is and this is actually part of learning how to think, is you need to learn how to weight the advice that you're getting. So for example, like, let's say I'm in the virtual reality space and I'm getting advice from someone that has nothing to do with virtual reality. And they're telling me like why virtual reality is not going to work. I'm going to wait that out because this person doesn't necessarily understand that space. But that person has been a founder. That person has spoken to investors. That person has run a business. Maybe they're in the vertical of the virtual reality that I want. So I need to weight that. I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to maybe do this at 100%, but I'm going to do this like, I'm going to take like 50% of what he has to say and put value there. So it's really just, understanding who's providing the feedback, why they're providing the feedback, what incentives or what has gone wrong, good or bad, in their life to warrant the opinions that they have. You know what
Got
I'm saying? And so, like, if someone has had a bad experience in something and they're telling you not to do
Yeah.
something, it might be because of that. It might be very valid though too. So again, how do you weight the advice that you're getting from people in order to make the decision that works best for you? Because ultimately it's up to you to make that decision. And the only time that person that gives you the advice is going to say is going to claim they give you the advice is when it goes right. But when that advice is wrong, they're not going to say anything. They're not going to be like, oh, I told him to do that thing that was wrong. So it's up to you to make that decision.
So, okay. Jonathan, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm pretty sure we could have spoken for at least another 30 to 40 minutes, but we
Definitely.
follow the timelines. But thank you so much for being on the show, and take care of yourself.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. Yeah, and if you want to follow what I'm doing, you can follow me on Twitter at JG Product, or learn more about TF Labs at TF Labs _. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.